All right, everyone, let's go ahead and get started. There will be some people probably jumping in here in a few moments, but let's go ahead and get rolling. Today, we're going to talk about ChatGPT and how you can leverage its backend portal to build a really kind of custom chatbot for your real estate website. If you want to just get a sneak peek at what this looks like or play around with it while it's live, head over to ernestenriquez.exprealty.com, and in the lower right corner, you'll see this chat widget that prompts open and acts as a real estate assistant for me, where users can go through this sequence, whether they're looking to get their home value or they're looking to buy a home. But in both of these, it's going to have the ability to carry a human-like conversation with the end user. So as they go through this sequence, they'll be able to ask questions like how many bedrooms, bathrooms, and so forth. But at the tail end of this, it's going to also have ChatGPT attached to it. So if the user were to ask it questions like, what's the real estate market in San Antonio or 78247, it's going to be able to intelligently respond. So they could say, yes, what is the market like in 78247? And they'll be able to go ahead and send that, and then also provide an email address. And you don't have to do the same sequence. Of course, we're trying to tailor this to be more real estate centric. But the idea is that this is going to be powered by OpenAI. And my phone is ringing because this acts as a lead capture. I'm going to show you how to plug this into KV Core today as well, which is a really other kind of cool tool. But you can see there how it gathered all those details about the 78247 zip code straight from ChatGPT directly to my chat widget. So hopefully you've had some time to go ahead and click those links that I've shared in the chat section of today's Google Meet. If you have any questions, go ahead and put those into the chat section, and we'll go ahead and get those answered probably at the tail end of today's workshop. So moving along. Who am I? I'm Ernest Enriquez. I'm an accomplished senior product manager. I have a background in software engineering and a bachelor's degree in software engineering. So I love tinkering with tools and API tools. And that's how this whole thing came to fruition. You know, I have the background knowledge to really go in there and be dangerous with creating these fun and cool, geeky tech widgets that can be leveraged in the real estate industry, right? What is OpenAI, right? You're probably wondering what OpenAI is. You might know what ChatGPT does. You can go to chatgpt.com. You can type in some fun and engaging things. But how can you really leverage this to be automated, right? So how can you leverage this to be a tool that helps you really kind of manage your business, right? Most of you have probably been on ChatGPT's website where you can go in and say, write me a list of past to-do of to-dos for my new listing, right? Or write me a listing description, or do this, or do that. You've probably all been on there and done that with ChatGPT. But did you know there's an entire backend to this that you could leverage using APIs in order to create other cool widgets like Listing Describer, a tool which I created most recently that creates listing descriptions, all powered by ChatGPT. But let's dive into this, right? So head over to openai.com. You're going to create a login for their backend access here. And basically what this is going to give you is it's going to give you the documentation to ChatGPT's platform. So you could leverage these to plug in tools like your website, whatever it might be, LandBot.io, ManyChat, whatever chat widget service you want to use. So long as they integrate with API sources, you'll be able to do this. I'm going to show you the main reason why I like to use LandBot, and that's because it's very simple to integrate and build API into it. So once you've created this login, we're going to look at the guides, right? What we're looking at is code completion. Anytime you go to ChatGPT's interface and you type in a command or a prompt, that is going to generate what they call as a completion. So you're basically telling the interface and giving it a task to complete. Now, with ChatGPT, you don't have the ability to go in there and change the models. You don't have the ability to do any of that stuff. But with what we're going to show you today, you're going to have that flexibility, because with code completion, there are also different models. So models are basically kind of structures or data algorithms on the back end that are tailored to do specific tasks. So things like act as a chatbot or act as a code completion. So if you want to write HTML code with ChatGPT, these are kind of things that you can use known as models for those completions, right? So with a model, it could be things like Text DaVinci. It could be things like Text DaVinci 2, 1, ChatGPT 4, which is coming out here as well with the API access here momentarily. There are also prompts, right? And things like max tokens. So the number of characters that you want to have redelivered. So this is as if you were to go and tell ChatGPT to say, hey, write me a listing description with only 150 characters, right? That is basically what you're doing is you're fine-tuning that prompt for each action that comes through it when you use the max tokens integer. There's also things like temperature. So this is a sampling that's basically going to determine how random or how not random your kind of creative description or choices or text that ChatGPT does for you, right? So if you want it to be a joke, you could have it set as high as like 2. If you want it to be more strict on what it returns back to you, you could have it set to like 0.1, which is really, really defined, meaning that it's not going to tell your user a joke, right? You could also use things like presence penalties. So if you don't want it to use verbiage that's already been used or tokens that have already been used, you could use that. You could also use things like frequency penalties, which just basically will say to not use the word the all the time or don't start the sentence with the. It's basically going to penalize ChatGPT's algorithm and system when it creates these text for you against using verbiage that's already been used in a previous sentence or in a sentence after that, right? So it's a really kind of a cool option that you have when you use their actual API. So I digress on this. That's basically everything you'll need to know. You'll need to know the endpoint where you're going to send the completion. That's this post URL right here. And we're going to make a post statement to that URL to have it go ahead and create it. So let's move on to LandBot. Let's dive into LandBot because LandBot is a really cool chat widget interface that has a lot of kind of pre-built templates in here. I'm going to start from scratch though, because I want to make this as super simple for you all to follow and understand on how to build this as possible. So as you saw, my first message in my particular personal chat widget was just a hi message and my business card, right? To create this in LandBot, all you have to do is go ahead and click on Create Add New. And we're going to go ahead and click on either buttons or text. So we'll use buttons for this example. You'll see it generates text there for me already. You could also change the GIF if you want to. You can make this be a photo of yourself or like I did with your business card. And then you can also change these buttons. So this button could say something like buy. And then you could also add another button that says something like sell, right? Now that you have that, you'll go ahead and create a path, right? So my next path would be to ask them for a message or send a message or ask a question like, where are you looking to buy, right? So we could say, ask a question, where are you looking to purchase? And I have these steps done at the beginning because I want this to also act as a form of lead capture. So I want this to capture the location. You might even ask them for things like their name, right? And if you type in name, you can see how that question already pre-prompts for you. You could also ask them questions like email, right? So if we want to ask the user for their email, we can go ahead and do that. So you saw how quickly I did that. There already are pre-built options for you to do this. And then it's as simple as duplicating these for my cell, right? So I might ask them for their name. I might ask them for their email as well. And then I might also ask them for their address. So let's actually make this a custom one, right? So we'll go ahead and say that. And then we're going to ask text, ask the user anything. And then we're going to say, what is your address? Now, once this is all done, I'm just basically building a form of lead capture. So I will say seller address as my variable. When you save a variable, this just allows you to basically go ahead and pass that variable along through this chat widget, as well as to outside sources. So now that I've done that, right, we have their name stored, their email stored, and these already save for you as email and as name. So you don't have to do anything on those. Now what you can do is if you want to integrate this to your KV core, it's literally as simple as clicking the plus button there and using a tool called Zapier, right? So most of you are probably familiar with that. So I could use Zapier to go ahead and create that new contact detail in my KV core. And you'll basically log into your Zapier account, and I'll show you that here in a moment, but you'll log into your Zapier account and you'll basically just go ahead and connect your bot and new bot ID to KV core. And I'll show you how to do that here in a second. But let's show you the cool stuff, because all you came here for ChatGPT and want to know how to make this thing powered by AI. So to do that, what I'm going to do is go ahead and click on an add new sequence. So basically, once it captures their email, send them to KV core, but also ask the user a question. So let's go ahead and ask them a question, right? So is there anything else? Anything else I could help you with? Question mark. And we'll store this as text. We'll go ahead and click save. And I'm going to regenerate this for both of those, so I can go ahead and do that. We'll go ahead and click save. And now what I want to do is, after it asks this question and stores their input as text, I want to go ahead and make a web hook. So a webhook is a way for us to send a request to an external third-party server to basically retrieve some data, right? So as I was showing you at the beginning of this workshop, we're going to go ahead and use the create completion URL. So we'll go ahead and copy that URL. And in our LandBot, inside of webhook, this is where we're going to go ahead and send that to. Now, it's important because there are going to be some authorization and header options that you need to send over. So for example, you'll see over here in our example request, these headers are just a way for that URL receiving the request to authorize the user access. So this tells the system what user is accessing that URL endpoint. So to add this into LandBot, all we have to do is go into custom headers. And inside of custom headers, we'll just type in content, type, and application JSON. And then we're going to add a key because we also need to add that authorization. And this is a bearer token. To get the bearer token, you're going to click on your personal profile up here in the top right corner. You're going to click on View API Keys, and you're going to create a new secret API key, right? So you'll go ahead and copy that. You'll click OK. And before you do that, you might want to just make sure you get it plugged in properly. But we'll go ahead and copy that, and we'll go ahead and paste it. Now we are all set up for this, right? So we can now start going into our customized body, because this is basically where we're going to want to tell LandBot and OpenAI what to create. So if we go back to our documentation in that code completion API reference, you'll notice that there's a data kind of example in the request here. So we're going to go ahead and copy this. Everything within these colons, we'll go ahead and copy them. And then we're going to go into LandBot and just paste that into here. And it's literally as simple as that. Now we're going to go ahead and in our prompt, we're going to remove say this text, and we're going to add a variable. So we're going to add our text variable just like that. And make sure you don't get these double parentheses there. You want it to look exactly like this. And then in max tokens, you're going to kind of decide how many characters or words this should actually be, right? So maybe I don't want this to be a long paragraph. Maybe I want to keep this short and isolated to feel more humanistic or human-like, if that's even a word, so that it's short, right? It's not going to deliver this really long paragraph to the end user. So I usually use something like 150 to 200 characters on this. And then on my temperature sample, I'm going to use 0.01. And let's go ahead and add some defining to this. So we're going to go back to OpenAI. And like I was showing you, there's things like temperature. There's things like echo, presence penalty, which the most commonly used ones that I like to use are presence penalty and frequency penalty. So we're going to add presence penalty into here. So you can just copy it, add the parentheses, And then we're going to go ahead and, since this is an integer, you don't need any parentheses around this. You'll go ahead and basically say like 1.0, right? Now, again, the higher the number, the more strict it is on the presence and frequency penalty. The lower the number on the temperature, the more strict it is. So they kind of did it backwards. And I don't like that because as an API guy, I want everything to follow kind of the same guidelines so that I don't have to change my numbers or anything like that. So we'll go ahead and add frequency penalty into here as well. And we'll go ahead and put underscore penalty. And then we'll do our number there. And if this is where you're going to end, do note that you don't have to put that comma there, right? So you won't have to go ahead and put that there. This is our end in our JSON request. Now we're done. So what I can do if I wanted to here is I can go ahead and manually set some test variables, right? So if I want to set the text, here we go. I can say, tell me about 78238 zip code real estate market. And this is just going to fire off a test to make sure that this is working. And I'm going to show you why this is important. Because we might actually get an error here, but in most cases, you'll get a success if you've set it up properly. Code 200 means that you've successfully set this up. And you'll see that it gives you a body, right? So if we look at that body, here's my text. Here is exactly what ChatGPT returned back to me. And now what I want to do is maybe you want to have that sent back to the user, right? So now we're talking about we've created this text, and I want to send it back in the same bot to that user. What you'll want to do is just go ahead and save the response as a variable. So we're going to toggle that switch on. And instead of the entire body, if you click this drop down here, you'll see that it gives you choices. Now, it's important to pay attention here because you don't want to use just choices. You want to use choices text. If you use this first one, it's going to send it just how it shows you there. So it's going to send everything on that screen. So you're going to get all the colons, the backslash, the ends, which are for spaces. You won't get this really kind of clean text version. We're going to go ahead and save that. So I could save this as something like response text. And you can create your own variable names, whatever you're going to understand or know what it is. Go ahead and name it that way. Just keep it conventional, right? So try and keep everything conventional and so forth. So now we're going to go ahead and apply this because we got that done. Our webhook is completed. I'm going to go ahead and send a message. Here we go. And then on LandBot, if you hold your Alt button and your left pointer clicker, that allows you to drag the screen. Inside of your message, you're just going to insert a variable. And what that variable is going to be is that response text variable, right? Then what you can do is, if you wanted to, you could loop this back to basically create a loop, right? So now that you've captured all their details at the beginning of this chat widget, you can go ahead and now start looping ChatGPT on the back end of this. So if they continue to ask it questions, it's intelligently responding to that user, right? Now, you could also, since you have this cell option, if you wanted to do something similar, you can go ahead and send it to that webhook. And now it's just going to, again, continue to loop the end of this block for your user. So if you go ahead and publish this, let's see what this looks like. So if we go ahead and publish it, you could right click or click on the drop down arrow. We can open this up in a new tab. If it wants to let me here. Actually, let me go to settings. And inside of your settings, you'll be able to choose your design, right? So you can go ahead and edit this. You can change your name. Let's do this first before we do this. But you'll be able to see this here, right? And you could even play around with it from here if you wanted to. So I could say things like buy, and I can tell it I'm looking to buy in San Antonio. And we'll go ahead and send. And then my name, of course, enter, email. We could put the email into here. And hopefully I don't get spammed at the end of this. But if you have questions, definitely feel free to reach out. I am open book here, so I could definitely help out wherever I can. Is there anything else I can help you out with? Tell me about the real estate market in Steuben Ranch, San Antonio, Texas. And when they go ahead and send that, this is where your loop begins. So as I was showing you, this is now calling ChatGPT to go ahead and obtain some text. It'll then send it back to me directly through that chat widget. And then you see how it sends that next message. So now this is just going to continue to loop. You can make that message whatever you want. You can add additional messages to this. This is just how you're going to get this integrated into ChatGPT and make it have these intelligent responses, right? So you could also have it ask things like, how many homes are listed for sale in 78258, right? And you'll see how it's able to intelligently respond to those questions. So at the time of writing this, there's currently 441 listed homes for sale in the 78258 zip code. So really kind of a cool widget that you could play around with. Now, that is leveraging ChatGPT's OpenAI, right? So we're basically using their API resources to create that widget. But there are also different models. So different models do different things. If you want to see what the models do, once you create your platform account, you'll go ahead and go into the playground. And this is where you can mess around with some of these models, right? So we have code completion. There's also like a chat option, right? So they just released GPT 3.5 Turbo. You could even use that as your endpoint to go ahead and create this chat widget for you. I've done some playing around with it, and I find that Text DaVinci 003 works the best because Turbo is still so fresh. It's still learning some of the natural language as it would act as a human-like chat widget or chat bot. So it's not yet well-defined, but it is going to get there eventually, and you can go through these again and play around with them. Completion has Text DaVinci 3, 001. They have a lot of other ones. Now, you'll see that I have some fine tunes here because maybe you're a little bit more advanced or technological, and you want to be able to control what the chat widget pushes out. There are some additional steps that you will need to take because you can basically go in and, like I've done here, you can create your own JSON. So what that means is that I can take a Google Sheet, right, where maybe I start off in, and I know I'm jumping around here quite a bit, but maybe I start off in ChatGPT and I say, write me the most commonly asked real estate questions, right? And we can basically then take this, put it into like a Google Sheet, and turn this into a JSON file. What that does for me is it then allows me to upload that into ChatGPT's server so that it can begin learning that natural language and start adding to this, right? So I would take all these responses, and inside of your documentation, there is a fine-tune option where I can upload a JSON lines file and create this fine-tuning that I can then use. So instead of using that Text DaVinci model, I can use my fine-tuned model to go ahead and start creating more of a natural language chat, right? So it's no longer just going to leverage ChatGPT. It's going to leverage everything that I've fed it as well. So you could take these, and then I can go ahead and copy these, and I could put these into like a prompt section here. So let me go ahead and clear this out. So we'll go ahead and add a prompt, and we'll add a completion because this is the formatting that it wants it in. And we'll go ahead and paste those into there. Now I can go ahead and say answer or give me a response for each of these questions. And it should give me a detailed response. It should give me an answer for each of these 10 questions, right? So here's the first one. And basically what you will do is you'll take this into your Google Sheet, and you'll go ahead and copy that and paste it into your first one. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because if you look at how OpenAI is structured, The way that they want you to create a fine tuning is it needs to start with prompt, right? So let's go up to the guidelines here. So for fine tunings, it needs to start with prompt and completion. That means that I could actually take this formatting if I wanted to and go into like JSON's data here, right? So this is convertjson.com, and I could paste this. So if you didn't want to use a Google Sheet, maybe you just go directly there, right? And I can copy this question here, and I could paste it into my prompt section. And then I can also go into completions, and now I can go ahead and use the response that I got back from ChatGPT, right? So we'll go ahead and use this here and paste it. Now what it's done for me is it's created a prompt. So what I can do now, if I wanted to, is go ahead and JSON to JSON lines. We have it there. I can go ahead and label this and download my result. Now what you would want to do is use something like a Postman. And again, this is getting a little bit more geeky per se, but you could go ahead and use something like a Postman to go ahead and have it create that file as a fine tuning inside of OpenAI's dashboard. So then you'll be able to use that. So I have my option here. So we'll go ahead and post files. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this one. And let's go ahead and select my file. So from downloads, this is workshop JSON. And I already have this set up, right? So in my header section, I got my authorization. In the body, you'll use the format of this, right? So you'll use the form format. And then we'll go ahead and send it. So there it is. It's now created it as a fine tune. Now what I want to do is go ahead and get a list of my fine tunings. So I have this GET request with my headers, or should have my headers already. It doesn't look like it does, but we'll go ahead and go back here and go to this bearer token, and let's go there, authorization, and we'll type this in. And again, you don't have to do this if you're just wanting to keep it simple. You are already done and ready to roll with your chatbot. But if we want to go ahead and get our fine tunes, here we have them. Right, so we could go up. We got our status 200 OK. Now we have all of our fine tunes with our files and the fine tune model name, right? So now that I've uploaded that, compile the results. Let's see here. It should have, I don't know why I'm not seeing it, but it should have that file workshop already loaded in there, right? And you'll see these fine-tuned models. So if I wanted to, I could just go ahead and instead of using Text DaVinci 3, I could use this fine-tuned model when it comes to making that webhook request to the model, right? So in your model, you would use your own pre-built model in there. Now, once you're done creating this and you have it to your liking, you'll then go through the design process. There are some predefined templates in here already for you. You could also create your own custom. So solid background. You could use an image if you wanted to, like I had it on mine, or you could just hide it to where it's, white. You could also go into the layout, and instead of this saying LandBot, you can make it say something like Mike's AI assistant. And you see how it changes that text up there. You could also change your logo image if you wanted to. So if you wanted to go ahead and upload your own image logo, we could, right? So I want to just use my photo here as my logo. You could see how it uses that. You might put your EXP logo or your brokerage logo up there. You also have things like bubble icons and so forth. Now you could also use chat. You can see how you could format the buttons and their stuff, right? So the shape of the buttons, you can get formatting to those. You could also change your avatar photo if you wanted to here, and so forth. Now, this is really easy to install to your website. So let's show you how to do that, right? So I'm done. I'm going to go ahead and publish this. When I go over to share, you'll see that I have the option where it says to embed into my website. I can choose from a live chat. I can choose from a full page embed or pop-up. What I'm going to do is just go ahead and copy this live chat option, right? So we're going to go ahead and copy this code that's right here. and head into your KV core. And then inside of your KV core or your web or your CRM, I thought I was already logged in here, but let's go ahead and log in. Inside of your KV core, you're going to go ahead and post that into the header section of your website, right? And I spelled that wrong. So you'll post that into the header section or into the custom section, whichever one your website takes. So in KV core, this is going to be labeled as your either header or even this custom chat, which you can see I have right there. You'll go ahead and paste that, click save, and then when you refresh your page, it'll have this chat widget prop open just as it does here. So really a cool scenario there. Now, if you want to create and say, hey, I want to send those leads that I captured from LandBot into my KV Core dashboard, that's going to be super simple. So head over to Zapier.com. And inside of Zapier, you're going to basically, once you're logged in, and I might not be logged in here because, of course, everything got logged out earlier when I did this update, but I'll go ahead and log back in. And then once you log in, it's basically going to be 2 steps, right? So you'll create a Zap. So once we go ahead here, and I need to update my card info there, but once we go ahead here to LandBot as our trigger app, you'll have to make a connection. Once you've made that connection, it'll have your account there. So you'll go ahead and click continue. And in your bot, you're going to find, this is going to be labeled new bot. You'll find your block, right? As I was showing you earlier, there are new blocks inside of that chat widget, right? So when you click on your Zapier setup here, we're looking for 179442. So when you click the blocks drop down, it'll give you these kind of numbers here, and they should match up to actually the block ID. There we go, XDD, right? So you should see those right there. And then your second step will be to basically say, send it to KV Core, choose your event, create contact post, and we'll use KV Core as our action app there. And then we're just basically going to continue to map everybody in, right? So once you do that, you'll send some test data through it, right? So if I would have tested this, so test trigger, it will bring in some test data. There it is. And all I got to do is go ahead and in my action app, go ahead and start mapping that over, right? So name, email, and cell phone. Now we captured their address. So if you wanted to add their address into here, you'll have that custom address field, right? So we added that address. So there it is. And then basically once you do that and have everything the way you like it, you'll go ahead and click continue and publish. And now anytime somebody comes through your LandBot feature, they'll go into KV Core, but then at the end of that conversation, it'll be powered by ChatGPT. So a really kind of cool way to create something that's going to engage with your users versus this behavioral-based structure that we have at the beginning being the entire flow, right? We see a lot of chat widgets out there that do that, where they're just basically like, give me your first name, give me your last name, give me your phone number, what are you looking for, what areas? And it can't actually, the user cannot actually ask it questions and it deliver a response back. And I think those days are gone since ChatGPT is rolled out, because you have the ability to create this simple to use structure that leverages ChatGPT's backend to go ahead and start carrying some of those conversations for you. Now, this doesn't have to just be used as a chat widget for your website. You can create this bot structure to be API based and maybe plug it into tools like Twilio, ManyChat. You could put it onto the front end of a website if you wanted to. Totally up to you and how you use it. I just used LandBot because it's simple to use. It's easy to create the structure and flow. And now I'm done in basically less than 30 minutes. So my chat widget is up and ready to roll. So if you have any questions, again, you should have received an email from the invite from myself. Go ahead and feel free to email me. I also am recording this, so you will have a recording sent out later on, as well as it'll be posted to YouTube on API Explorers or at API Explorers. And if you're looking for maybe more marketing techniques or anything like that, join my friends Ryan Hartman and Josh Only over at Wake Up Real Estate. They have some really good content published to help you really kind of get those marketing juices flowing and start really being dangerous. So any questions out there from anybody, go ahead and put them into the chat section now. I'm going to go ahead and start checking that. Yes, there will be a recording of this sent out to you all later on. So any questions from anybody, we'll go ahead and answer those now. If we don't have any questions, we can go ahead and wrap it up. That is how you will build a ChatGPT powered chat widget for your real estate website using LandBot and ChatGPT. So super, super simple. But I'll stick around here for a moment and answer any questions that might come to mind from anybody out there. So. And again, if we don't have any questions, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. Yeah, so great question. And basically what we're using ChatGPT for is leveraging it to have it respond to whatever the user might put into it, right? So for example, on my bot here, the user could theoretically ask it any question that it wanted to, right? So what is the diversity of, for example, diversity of San Antonio? There's really no fine tuning that you can add to restrict things like this other than forbidding it to do things like bad words and so forth, right? So you can do that, but you could see how they could ask questions to this in a non-standardized form, and it still deliver a very, very direct response based off that question. So really cool there. That's exactly the reason why I don't use the GPT 3.5 Turbo model for this, is because of that scenario, right? Because they can't actually ask it questions. So for example, if you wanted to play around with that we can go into the playground here. And in here, let's use chat and let's just ask it. So let's say, how is San Antonio real estate? Right, we'll click submit. You'll see that as the assistant here, it first starts off with this verbiage here, but then it also still proceeds to tell me how the market is. Where versus the completion text Da Vinci, I could say, how is the San Antonio real estate market? And we'll go ahead and click on submit. And it'll actually just give me a response directly to that. So I have not done that yet. That is a great question. Started implement. So the question is, have you started to implement this in the IG, Facebook, and YouTube? Have you done that yet? No. And there's a very good reason for that is I don't run very many Facebook ads anymore. I run more Google pay-per-click ads for my own personal real estate business. But with that being said, to answer further to that question, inside of LandBot, you can actually make this be a Facebook Messenger portal. And I totally left that out. I spaced out. But if I wanted to, this could be a Facebook Messenger tool. So that bot that I just created, I could attach it to my Facebook so that that is the responses that somebody would get if they were messaging me through my Facebook Messenger page, right? Or my business's Facebook Messenger. So you can connect this to Facebook and use that same chat that I just created. So in theory, if you wanted to run ads that targeted like, hey, send us a message, you totally could, and have it first capture a lead and then carry a conversation using ChatGPT on the tail end of that chat. Yeah, so great question. It's going to map just fine, right? So if they were to say, tell me a joke, right? Like just theoretically using ChatGPT, there's really no restrictions per se on what the user can input. And if you try and throttle that script or that input, you get just absolutely like crazy generated responses, right? Because it's not going to make sense to the system. It might even fail and so forth. So you could see how you can have it tell you a joke. So theoretically, it could tell them a joke if you wanted it to. But if they're going to be real estate centric, they're going to ask things like, you know, how many homes are for sale in 78247, right? And it's going to generate responses to that. And that's why I say, if you want this to be more defined, you need to get away from using Text DaVinci 3 and start doing more custom, like I showed you, where you upload a fine tuning and you go ahead and use that fine tuning in your LandBot for your chat widget. So then you're now controlling what the completions are going to be or what the response is going to be to the question. And OpenAI does a really good job of learning based off of what you fed it and starts adding to that. So for me personally, on Zapier, I'm not using any of Zapier on this. I'm using LandBot. And again, that's why I like to use LandBot, because they have the native webhook builder in their bot creation. So I can basically go ahead and use their webhook that's built in, as you see here, over up to the right. I could use their webhook option to go ahead and complete this. So in fact, I wouldn't need to use Zapier if I didn't absolutely want to, because theoretically, this step right here could be a webhook to KV Core, right? So if you haven't seen these already, I'm going to show them to you first here. But KV Core has Open API as well. And this is for all of the third parties. This just means that if I wanted to, I can do a post statement to this URL endpoint to have it create that contact, and then everything lives within LandBot. But for most users, if you're not API centric or don't really understand what that does or how to use it, Zapier is your easy to use tool, or things like APINation.com will be your easy to use tools as well. So if I wanted to, I can make this all native into my bot so that it creates the contact using a webhook, and it also generates those responses using a webhook. Next week, I'll be doing a ChatGPT, how to set up dynamic emails using ChatGPT. This is a cool tool that I've created from my KV Core that sends AI written emails to my new leads. So as a new lead registers, it sends this AI written email directly to them upon registration. So some really cool things you could do with OpenAI and ChatGPT. One of the other tools I'll show, I'm going to give it a plug here. One of the other tools that I created is Listing Describer. If you haven't seen it yet or not, this is a pretty cool tool, all powered by ChatGPT. So what that means is that you have the ability to go into here and create listing descriptions, right? So you'll be able to log in, and it's not, of course, not going to let me log in here. But you'll be able to log in and go into the system, and basically you'll be able to create listing descriptions, all powered by OpenAI, without having to do any of this customization. So let me grab the email, because I think you'll all find this very interesting. Give me 2 seconds here. Meanwhile, while I do this, go ahead and if you have any other questions, drop them in the comments section or in the chat section here, and we'll go ahead and get those answered. Apologize. So this is the dashboard of Listing Describer. As you have new listings, you'll input some details about that listing, and these descriptions are all powered by OpenAI, aka ChatGPT. So if you want to generate a description, it's as easy as clicking Generate Description. If you want to generate an email subject, you can create an email subject, listing blogs, Facebook ad copy. It literally does it all for you at the click of a button without you having to go and tell it as you would on ChatGPT to, for example, write me a listing description, and I'll plug in my personal address here. So we'll say, write me a listing description for this property here. You can see how it gives me a listing description, but there's no fine tuning to it. And I have no control over how many words it sends out. And I'm going to have to go back and edit this, right? So it wrote me this kind of pretty defined one this time. Sometimes you'll get long paragraphs here where you still got to go and fine tune it. But listing describer actually takes the headache out of having to tell this thing to do multiple commands to complete one action, right? So now if I wanted to add emojis or do this or do that, listing describer does that in less than 30 seconds. So you can see how it upgrades or updates your stuff there, created a listing blog, and it's very, very easy to use. It also does market activity reports. So for example, if you want to have it say, hey, write me a market activity report for Facebook, you could have it do that here, right? And it's all at the click of a button. So super, super easy to do. But I digress. Let's talk a little bit more about chatbots here. And any other questions before we wrap it up? We got about 2 to 3 minutes here. Yeah, so there will be a recording sent out to everybody who registered today. And we can discuss setup offline as well. But any other questions from anybody out there? Now would be the time to ask. If not, let's go ahead and wrap it up and get back to our Thursdays. Hopefully we can get back out there, help people sell and buy some real estate, because that is our ultimate goal as a real estate agent. Awesome. Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in today, and I will get this recording out ASAP. Come back next week if you want to learn about how to create an AI written email and attach it to a KV Core Smart campaign. I'll be doing a workshop on that next Thursday at the same time. Go ahead and go to EXP Marketplace. You can go ahead and find the link to subscribe to that event or to register for that event as well. Thanks, everybody. Have a fantastic rest of your Thursday. Talk to y'all later.